Naylor's Brewery Old Ale.
And remember, life is too short to be drinking shitty beer.
Welcome to another edition of Bands, Bikes and Booze Reviews. What a fucking day. This has been so shit. West Ham have just lost 2-1 to Liverpool. Boris Johnson has just announced another lockdown for another month. So all the pubs are going to be shut. Well done, Boris. How they're going to survive that, I don't know. But yeah, that's just put a fucking nail in the coffin of a few more businesses that are struggling. I know my missus is going to struggle. She's a hairdresser and she doesn't qualify for the furlough scheme because she hasn't been self-employed long enough. That's a fucking ridiculous idea. Her boss as well is the same. Don't know what's going to happen now. So yeah, genuine shit show all round. But they're keeping the schools open. The main cause of COVID infection. Fucking bravo. Anyway, enough bullshit politics for one day. Let's try this out. This is from the Naylor's Brewery. They're based in People's Republic of Yorkshire.
I did not leave the sacred sod of God's own county, Yorkshire.
I just had a German mate message me and he says, it's got a white poppy on it. I showed him a photo of it. He says, it's got a white poppy. I was thinking of getting that tattooed. For fuck's sake, don't do that. They called it a white poppy as well, which I thought was hilarious. Anyway, what was I saying? Yeah, Naylor's. They're from a place called Keighley, which is in the People's Republic of West Yorkshire. And they've been going since 2001. And they've been started up by they were started up by two brothers, Robert and Stephen Naylor, in a pub in Keighley. I think it was called the White Bear or something like that. And they have since moved location to a bigger premises and they're brewing some quite decent beer by the looks of things. Now, I had a choice of a few of their beers, but the one that really interested me was the Old Ale. Now, I really do like Old Ale. If you're not familiar with the style, it's usually quite high ABV, very malty, dark British or English beer, if you like, or English ale, to give it its correct term. It's personified in beers like the Yorkshire Stingo from Samuel Smith's, the 1698 by Shepherd Neame, the Fuller's 1845 and the Fuller's Vintage as well. They're two pretty good styles of Old Ale. You've got Old Tom from the Cameron's Brewery. You have one of my favourites is the Adnams Tally-Ho Old Ale. Barley wine is an interchangeable term. The difference between barley wine and Old Ale, I cannot see a difference. I don't think anybody out there can really convince me there is a difference between the two. But there's some really good ones out there. And of course, there is a fantastic one called Old Peculiar from the Theakston's Brewery. That is a really good example of Old Ale. And it's travelled well because a lot of American craft brewers are brewing Old Ale now. And you can usually tell the American craft brew Old Ale because it'll have old in the name of the beer. They always put that into there so as people know what they're getting, and it's a great style. If you're not familiar with it and you love your Belgian doubles, you like your Belgian brown ales, you know, that strong, quite sweet style flavour from your beer, if you like that, you're going to love Old Ale. So check it out. It really is an interesting style, and it's one of my favourite styles of British beer. It really is. And this is what the point of me saying that is, that's what got me interested in this stuff. Now, Old Ale has got a rich history. it's probably the oldest recorded ale. I won't say the oldest recorded ale, but in the modern era, and I use that term loosely. I'm talking about the 1700s. The original IPAs were old ale, or what was old ale, and then when they put a tax on the malts due to the Napoleonic Wars, they started using roasted malts to give to basically make the malt go further, give the beer a bit of colour, and hence your IPAs were born. But originally it was old ale. That's what they drank in India. You could argue it's the original IPA, but it's not a pale ale. But it was exported to the colonies and it was drank there and it was enjoyed. Anyway, I'm not going to go into that further. If you want to look up or you want to know more about old ale, I suggest you look at my video on the history of IPAs, because old ale does get a mention there. Also, have a look at the history of the stouts as well. Old ale again gets a mention there because it is the father of all English beer. Anyway, let's investigate this beer. Right, this is an old ale, as the name suggests, from the Naylor's Brewery. It is 5.9% ABV. Now that is quite low ABV for an old ale. What you're looking at, really, old ales are normally between sort of 6 and 8%. Very, as I say, there's a lot in common with them and Belgian Abbey beer, Belgian Trappist beer, dark Belgian Trappist beer. And the ABV and the similarities are there with the Belgian beers. So again, that sort of reiterates my point about that. The hop that's used in this is unusual. It's a Cascade hop. Now normally you'd get a British hop that would be in there. You're normally like a Target or Challenger hop, possibly even a Fuggles hop that will be put in there. But they've used an American hop here, Cascade. Not sure why. Maybe because it's popular. But old ales really are about the malt. That's what they do. And on the side, an extra long maturation period before bottling means this very smooth beer with a sweet maltiness balanced by a subtle bitterness, creating a strong but easy drinking beer. Following the maturation period, the beer is cold filtered and bottled. This process removes the sediment without affecting the flavour of the beer. Well, I would argue with that point. Usually old ale is bottle conditioned or cask conditioned. I think they do this on cask, and that is cask conditioned, so I would argue that point, that cold filtering doesn't change the flavour of the beer. I'm sure if you left the sediment in there, the yeast sediment, other things would happen. There could potentially be more yeasty esters that are in there, and maybe another bottle fermentation. But that's just me. I could be completely wrong on that, but that's just what I'm thinking. Anyway, let's get this open. Let's see what it's all about. Cap is just plain brass coloured. Let's get it into the glass. Oh, this isn't looking good. No, this is not looking good at all. I'm really trying to give this an aggressive pour to get some head on that, and it isn't looking good. Oh, that is a real shame. There's huge alarm bells with this. I have to say it does smell nice, but it's just the head has dissipated so quickly. That really is not a good sign. What are we getting on the nose? It actually doesn't smell too bad. There is high malty aromas coming from this, caramel and toffee, and that big malty aromas. There's a very slight sweetness to it as well. I don't know whether they've added, it doesn't say it on the on the ingredients, it just mentions that there's wheat. That's the only adjunct that they've said that's in it. They haven't said there's any finings or there's any sugar in there. But it looks a bit full on with virtually no head on it at all. But I have to say, it does smell nice. So a bit of a difficult one here. This could be good or it could be shit. Wish me luck. Cheers. There's a hell of a lot of malt in this, I will say that. And there is a bit of spirit alcohol in there. For 5.9%, it certainly feels like it's stronger. Or it certainly tastes like it's stronger. But this is all about the malt. It's very flat. I think what they've done here, this is what it tastes like to me. This is the sort of stuff you would go to a pub with a growler, fill it up direct from the pump, and then take it home. It does taste like it's just come out of a cask. I will say that. There is no carbonation in there, very little. Hence the reason there's no head. It's flat as a witch's tit. There's no carbonation in that whatsoever. This is probably a throwback, actually. This is probably what, you know, old ale, and you could get old ale back in the 70s and 80s. This is probably what it tasted like. There is a richness to it. It's got an almost sherry-like quality to it. Full of malt, sweet malt, caramel, toffee, but there's quite a bit of biscuit malt on the finish as well. That's what I'm getting. This could have been brilliant. However, I'm slightly disappointed. I would have preferred it to have been, how can I put it, certainly not cold filtered. I'd have rather they left the sediment in there. I don't know why they've taken that out, but I would have preferred a little bit of carbonation in there and a little bit of a head on it as well. And to be fair, it does look like it's just been pulled from a keg or a cask, but well, it could be cask because they do cask conditioned beer. But having said that, it's a bit of a grower, this one. There's definite malt on that. Loads of, when I say malt, this is all about the malt. The Cascade hops are immaterial in that. I can hardly taste any of that. This is just caramel and toffee malt. I can't get any chocolate malt out of that. Just caramel, bit of toffee, and a little bit of biscuit malt on the finish, and that's it. And it feels like there's spirit alcohol in there, like ethanol running through it. There possibly is, but there is a sweetness from that malt, and it says it's got crystal malt on that, which does make sense because the crystal malt obviously is going to give it the sweetness because that's the nature of crystal malt. I'm really torn with this. If I'd have got this on cask, I'd have said it's amazing stuff. But from a bottle, it's a little bit, it's thrown me a little bit. I'm used to bottled beer. I'm not used to what is effectively, and what it really does taste like, is cask beer from a bottle. And to be honest, it's not bad. It sounds like I'm knocking it. I'm not. I'm just confused. Well, I've drunk almost half a pint of it in the space I've been talking to you, and it's gone down really nicely. It really does feel like a cask beer. That's what's probably confusing me. So what's the verdict on Naylor's Old Ale? Well, finally getting my head round this being effectively a cask beer in a bottle. It's just okay. As old ales go, it's not up there with the best of them. There's much better old ale out there. However, having said that, it's not bad. It's got everything I would expect from an old ale, but possibly just not the high ABV. There is, 5.9%. That's reasonably strong, but for an old ale, I'll be expecting sort of 7.5, 8, possibly even 9. The sort of ABVs you'd expect from a barley wine, which is effectively an old ale. Having said that though, it's got everything an old ale should have. It's got the big malt on it, and the sweetness as well is there from the crystal malt. They've really packed in that crystal malt, and it's giving it a nice sweetness to it as well. And it's giving it that. If you ever have, not that I have, but my mum used to drink cream sherry, and occasionally when I was a kid, I was only about fucking 10 or 11, I'd occasionally nick a swig from it, and it immediately reminds me of this. It's got that sherry-like quality to it. Obviously not as intense as sherry, but it's got that sweetness to it. It's just okay. I'm going to give it a 6.5 out of 10. That sounds like it's a bit harsh, but if I'd have got that out of a cask, as I keep saying, I'd have given it a higher mark. Out of a bottle, I would have expected bottle conditioning. I'd have expected yeast settings. See these cunts here with these fucking fireworks? Fucking idiots. Fucking idiots. These are the ones who've been pleading poverty in a few weeks. Oh, I'm fucking skinned, I'm skinned. Yeah, we just spunked a load of fucking money. You just literally burnt your money, sent it up in the fucking sky, you silly bastards. And fucking weighing the dogs up to boot as well. Fucking, anyway, don't get me started. This beer, yeah, I'm going to give it 6.5. I think that's about right. Or I think it's right for me anyway. It's okay, it's not bad. It's not put me off the Naylor's Brewery. I just thought they could have done this better. They could have brewed a beer for the bottle. I don't think they've done that. I think they've put their cask beer into a bottle. That never really works in my opinion. There you go, that's just me. And remember, beer is working class champagne.